Georgia District family. Superintendent Doherty here with you today, and for another episode of the Soup of the Day podcast. We have a very special friend of ours. He's not currently living in Georgia, but he is a son of this state. He is well known to many of you. Dennis Clanton, former DCAP and DYD of the Georgia District, and moved to Michigan, has been pastoring there for several years. Dennis, welcome to the Soup of the Day podcast.
Thanks, John. I am really happy to be here.
I'm so glad to see you. We've had many years of ministry together way back when. I know you from the 80s and just growing up in Georgia. I feel like I've known you my whole life. And you've been pastoring there for, I believe, 26 years there in Michigan at Woodland. We just want to ask you a few questions. The goal of the podcast, of course, is to glean some wisdom from those who have been doing ministry for a while. And we've got young leaders that are going to be watching this, and even some of our pastors as well. And so I sent you some questions, and I want to start off today with the first one, and that is this. You've been doing this for a long time. And you've been able to survive and thrive in ministry for a number of years. What spiritual practices have sustained you through difficult seasons of ministry?
John, it's such a great joy to see you in your position of leadership and how God is using you in Georgia. And we have been friends for a long time. And I owe so much to the state of Georgia and the Georgia District and the love that they gave to Becky and myself and our children. And we're grandparents now. We have 5 grandsons. So the tribe is growing, and we're very happy about that. But as far as the spiritual practices that have sustained me, I was fortunate to have some really great models. Dr. Addison was a great model. I can see him rocking back and forth in his chair. Even before he came into the district office, he had a blue rocking chair in Athens that he would rock in and pray in and read his Bible. And I was always asking people how they spent their quiet time with the Lord. But my spiritual practices, going back to just from the very beginning, I started journal keeping before that became a thing, and I called it Coram Deo from a Latin phrase I learned in college at Southeastern, before the face of God. And I've journaled there every morning from the scriptures. And I have a section that I call LAP, Life Application Principles, that I try to take something from the Word each day that applies to me specifically, and I just write that down, and then periodically throughout the day, how am I applying that? That could be in relationships, that could be in study, that could be in a vision that we're casting. But for myself personally, what that principle and how it works. I've also been really blessed to have prayer partners through the years that are free to ask me anything they want to about my thought life, how I spend my time, my finances, my relationship with my family. And some of these relationships are over 30 years old. Some of them are 20 years old. But these are people that each week I connect with, that pray with me. I pray with them. And they're people that I'm not necessarily their pastor. They're people that are peers and friends in ministry. And I'm sorry if maybe you just heard the old grandfather clock go off. I was upstairs in my study a few minutes ago when we were trying this, but I hope that helps. I'm a huge reader. I'm always looking for not just leadership books, but books that will help me grow deeper in my faith. So I'm always reading something.
Well, you mentioned, Dennis, about having a group around you, and that it's not a pastoral relationship, but it is a peer relationship. And that is so absolutely essential, to have those individuals in our lives that are free to speak and to hold us accountable. And it kind of leads me into my next question, and that is guarding our hearts, or guarding ourselves, guarding our character, guarding our reputation, and the ability to do so in such a way is that we can be accountable not only to the Lord, but to our peer group. How do you go about selecting those individuals to be a part of that accountability?
Well, first of all, I look for resonance. Is there something but in our lives that resonate together? I look for people that I may share something with them, And then I just kind of wait. If I don't hear that they've repeated that within a couple of weeks or a month, I may invite them out to a coffee or to lunch and just talk with them, and I'll share a little more with them. And if I find out that they're really confidential, because if you're going to open up your heart, your thought life, your finances, I remember in the early 80s when I was talking about wanting to have these kind of prayer partners, one of the pastors in Georgia that was a mentor to me, you know him, he cautioned me again. He said, "Don't do that." He said, "That's too dangerous." And so I went and talked to another pastor, and he said the same thing. But somehow or another, I knew in my life I needed these people I could trust that could speak into my life. And I've never regretted it, but I was very careful of how I select these people in my life. And so when we begin these prayer partner relationships, we actually enter into a covenant with one another to guard our time and guard the conversation we have. Uh, some of them are people who their their leadership gifts or their area of work. One of them is a very well-known scientist. One of them has been a coach for years, and they know how to motivate and encourage me as well. I owe a lot to them.
That is incredible. And one thing you mentioned about the ability to maintain confidences or to maintain that that is so very hard to find in ministry. And I would say that I've heard the same thing when you mentioned those pastors. Oh, be careful about sharing too much and whatnot. But I do believe that there is some degree of safety and transparency. The difference between us and them is that they're still having the same struggles. They're just not talking to anybody about it. They're not, and they're siloed. And from the organizational side of things, Dennis, in the office here, we wind up dealing with issues that could have been remedied had there been a strong group around this individual that they feel comfortable talking with and allowing themselves to be held accountable to some degree. Now, we have done a lot to sort of formulate a plan with our elder ministry now, and you may not be familiar with that, but we have a group of elders in every section that have a clergy penitent privilege. And so that in ministering with our ministers, they are able to get in front of the issues and build those relationships and help people walk through those things before it ever becomes a problem. And that is something that I feel that resonates in my heart that you just mentioned, that you need to have those people around you. I have people in my life who have a blank check to write and to call you out if you're hey, listen, do you really want to think that way? Do you really need to be having that attitude towards X, Y, and Z? And it's important to give some people that ability to do so. So thank you. And you're saying, and what I'm hearing is that's really helped you sustain your ministry all these years.
I believe so. And I think it's very wise, and it's a mark of a good leader. Each of our leaders at Woodland are required to mentor someone new every year. I personally will take on a mentoring relationship with 3 people a year. Usually one of them is outside of our congregation. That's another younger pastor that they approach me, and I ask them to commit to a year. And then at the end of that year, I try to point them on to someone else so I can begin to mentor someone else. And so by doing that, we've been able to raise up other leaders as well. But part of that is build around you some people that you can trust to be prayer partners with you. I don't just need counselors. John, I really need people that will pray with me, that will be like Aaron and Hur, lifting up my hands. Becky and I believe so much, and I know you do as well. And of course, the Assemblies of God, that's one of our strengths, is our emphasis on prayer. But as we pray together, it seems like in the scriptures and in our lives, more coincidences happen, miracles take place. So I need these people to be not just counselors, but prayer partners.
I love it. I love it, Dennis.